Chances are, if you fell over someone in the street over the last 5 years or so, it's probably because they had their nose buried in a court of thorns and roses. That, of course, is Sarah J. Maas's hugely popular series, among a lot of popular work really in the fantasy genre. Today, I want to take a look at some of her advice for writers. Let's start at the foundation of why we're all here. Number 1, make time to read the books you love and never be ashamed of them, even if they're considered uncool or unintellectual. It's good to have a reminder to spend time immersed in stories that you love, of course. A lot of writers have busy lives, and sometimes, at least for me, it can seem like reading can sometimes be a relaxation activity that gets shunted down the to-do list when there are, more pressing matters to attend to. However, it isn't just a leisure activity. Reading feeds our creativity and reminds us why we want to write all these stories of our own. It fans the flames and keeps things burning for us. Reading is what brought every single one of us to writing, I dare say, and just because we're here now doesn't mean it can't still give you that same motivation and push to create your own stories. And I definitely think it's a good idea to give not one single crap about what someone else thinks of your favourite books. It doesn't matter. I'd rather read a book I love than spend time bringing someone else down for finding a passion in something. Seems like more of a productive use of a writer's time. Speaking of which. Number 2, go to museums, take art classes, see movies you have no interest in seeing. Take the time to observe people, how they talk, how they move, how they interact. Keep your eyes open wherever you go because you never know when inspiration will strike. These are all similarly helpful activities for enriching your mind, I think, and I'm sure you've likely heard some of these suggestions before, probably in these videos if you've seen any of my others, but I want to narrow in on one thing in particular that she said here. See movies you have no interest in. I think that's really good advice, even if you don't take it completely literally and just apply it to movies. Analysing things that you think are bad is genuinely helpful, at least it always has been for me. Learning what I don't want to do in my stories or what I want to avoid doing has tightened up my writing quite a bit, I think. If I'm reading something and as a writer or as a reader, I find myself thinking about the construction of the book or I feel put off in some way or bothered by something, I take a lesson from that and try and make sure I avoid doing that in my own work, if possible. You can do it with books, TV, movies, anything. There'll often be stuff that you don't think is exactly great, even in the highest budget productions. In fact, often in the highest budget productions. So learn from their mistakes and also just spend some time feeling good about the fact that you can spot those things and that you didn't make that same mistake yourself. Not to mention, some stuff is just so bad that it comes around to being enjoyable again. My wife, for example, laughs at bad horror films far more than she does at comedies, and that makes them a lot more fun for me to watch as well. But remember, like I said before, someone else may love that terrible story, and if they do, try not to ruin it for them. Number 3. Being able to accept and incorporate criticism is one of the hardest things to do and one of the most crucial to our profession. Learning to accept it will only help you in the long run and will help your writing improve. This is a mistake I've made and sometimes continue to make, to be perfectly honest. It's very easy when you're starting out as a writer to keep everything to yourself and to hide your writing from the world. After all, there's little reason to share it. You don't really know what you're doing. It's probably not going to be good, which means the reactions probably won't be good. It can only lead to something bad or upsetting. That makes sense, but it's not necessarily accurate. Even if your writing is objectively bad, well, it's fine because you're new. People aren't born great writers. There's a spectrum. You may start out better than average or worse than average, but you've got no control over that. What you do have control over is where on the spectrum you end up, because all that costs you is time and effort and a bit of courage. Easy. You can get to where you want to be, you just have to be willing to work for it. More on that later. But the sooner you start taking on criticism and get used to taking it and bouncing back, the sooner you'll start feeling happier with the overall standard of what you write. And if you do it while you're still quite new, you've got an excuse to be bad. What if you write in secret for 10 years, then finally work up the courage to show someone and the feedback's way worse than you expected it to be? I feel like that would be much harder to bounce back from. Be brave, get your work out there, find a critique partner or a writer friend or a reader friend, and you can even return the favour. It doesn't have to cost money. However, awkward segue, if you are considering getting some professional feedback, I have an editing service where you can send me your work and I'll both line edit and developmental edit it for you. It's all done through my website. My approach is friendly and supportive. Whether it's your first story or your millionth, I've worked with over 100 writers and I've never had bad feedback. Or if you want to help me build a group of like-minded writers and get extra video content, personalized videos, and a bunch of other stuff, I do all of that on Patreon. Links for both are below. Number 4, remember that world building and character building often go hand in hand. Just like you, your character is a product of their world. Sometimes the subtlest day-to-day details can bring your character and world to life. I really like this advice. I haven't heard world building and character building put so directly next to each other before, but I don't know why. It makes perfect sense. Both in terms of the social and political structures of your world, perhaps, or hierarchy and class system, that kind of thing. There are loads of ways to reflect your world in your characters and the other way around. I'm not really one for setting up big detailed character profiles. I have used them a couple of times, but I often keep all of the details up here, for better or worse, but this feels like something you could plan out and expand as you're organising your book. I think it's very likely that your ideas could then start feeding each other. A character may dress or speak a certain way, maybe because they come from a certain town, which is in a certain location in the shadow of a mountain, and so on. Your creativity can start to compound when you lean into it that way. Anything that helps to expand characters and make them feel more real sounds worth doing to me. That's always my priority, especially if in turn that expands your world. Linking elements of your story together in that way will create a nice cohesive feel, as though everything is moving in the same direction and working towards the same end. Sounds like something to aspire to with any story, really. Number 5, it's a long road to publication, but that's a good thing. You'll only make it if you have a story that you love with your entire heart and soul, and the only person that can ever make you stop writing is you. So write what you love and screw the rest. Of course, I totally agree with the write what you love and screw the rest advice here, absolutely, but that wasn't the part of this quote that grabbed my attention so much. You very rarely hear anyone talking about how it's a good thing that some parts of writing take so long to get done. Hopefully I won't come across as elitist or anything like that when I say this, but I think writing is one of those things you've got to settle into and be persistent at for it to work out, whether that's in terms of publication or some other route. Writing isn't an instant gratification pursuit, far from it. That's why nobody's ever going to take AI-generated novels seriously or value them. If nobody bothered to write it, why would anybody bother to read it? The heart of any real story is in the journey and the purpose of the author writing it, the hours spent thinking about the best way to highlight something or the right path for the characters, and all the time they've spent developing skills that help them bring this all to life. The time that we invest in learning is important. We're choosing to sit at a desk and try and do something hard instead of sitting on the couch and doing something easy. There's nothing wrong with relaxing, obviously, but I think there's a lot to be said for wanting to create something in the full knowledge that it'll take a long time and it'll be a lot of hard work. To me, that's what makes stories worthwhile, and I think readers appreciate that about them. They can feel when hours and months and years have gone into a book, and I think that gives it value. It's one human saying, I care about this enough to spend all of this time on it, and another human saying, yeah, I can understand why. Speaking of stuff people have spent an awful lot of time on, here's a playlist of all my famous author advice videos like this, so have a look through and see if your favourite's there. Thank you so much for watching as always, and happy writing.